Hi everyone, I'm Sam. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give you a tour of my bookshelves. The vast majority of my books are in Russian, but I figured that it might be interesting for you to see the covers because sometimes they are pretty different from the English editions. I have 4 bookcases. 2 of them are IKEA Billy white ones, and 2 others are some random local ones. And I also have a TBR card. On the shelves, the books are organized by genre and also by height in most cases, and sometimes by the author's name. Alright, without further ado, let's go to my bookshelves. Here's the overview of my first bookcase. It mainly holds classical books, contemporary ones, romance novels, non-fiction books, etc. And also on the last bookshelf, there are books that I wanted to unhaul. This is the first shelf and I'm standing on a chair, so sorry if the camera is a little bit shaky, but this is the classics shelf. Firstly, I have this national Kazakh instrument called dombra and a little tea light here. Let's start on this side. The books here are from the same collection, so they look similar. The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, The Garnet Bracelet by Alexander Couperin, Arthur Conan Doyle and his Sherlock Holmes, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne and The Mysterious Island by him, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and 1001 Nights. Up next is this beauty by Alexandre Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo, and this is an illustrated edition. This is probably one of my favorite classics editions because they are kind of colorful but at the same time uniform, and yeah, they're also pretty budget friendly. The first book here is the Ancient Greek Comedies and also Ancient Greek Tragedies. The Secret Garden by Frances Burnett, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, one of my favorite books of last year, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, Aeneas by Virgil, Jules Verne again and his Journey to the Center of the Earth. Oh, I hate to say this last name, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, William Golding and his Lord of the Flies, a book that made me think a lot last year, The Odyssey by Homer, The Devil's Elixirs by Hoffman, The Trial by Franz Kafka, Martin Eden by Jack London, and also The White Fang and The Call of the Wild, a collection of works by Rilke, John Wyndham and his The Day of the Triffids, and The Chrysalids, Lovecraft and the collection of his works, and the last book on the shelf is Solaris by Stanislav Lem. On the second shelf here I have The Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and over here I have books by David Mitchell. I think I have all of them except one, and they are in the chronological order, starting with Ghost Written, Number 9 Dream, The Cloud Atlas, Black Swan Green, The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet, and I'm in love with this cover. Look at it. The Bone Clocks, and Utopia Avenue. Next up, these absolutely gorgeous books by Kate Morton, The House at Riverton or The Shifting Fog, The Distant Hours, and The Clockmaker's Daughter. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I love this edition, and I would love to have all of my classics in this one, but unfortunately they are pretty pricey. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, this vintage edition of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, The Great Gatsby by Francis Scott Fitzgerald, The Help by Katrin Stockett, George Orwell and his 1984 and The Animal Farm, and my cats ate this corner, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, The Minds of Billy Milligan by Daniel Keyes, this very cute edition of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Unfortunately, I haven't read it yet. Go Set a Watchman and To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Louise May Alcott and her Little Women and the Good Wives, and also this edition of Little Women, Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. And the last book here is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. Alright, shelf number 3. Here again I have a tea light and this postcard from my friend with a traditional Georgian meal, I think. Carmen Maria Machado, Her Body and the Other Parties. Matt Haig and his The Dead Fathers Club. These cool editions are for the books that were in the shortlist for different awards. Here we have Human Acts by Han Gunn, An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, and Le Bal de Folle by Victoria Moss. 2 books by Louise Erdrich, The Roundhouse and La Rose, The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, The Hours and the Wild Swan by Michael Cunningham, If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha, my all-time favorite author Fanny Flagg and her Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, Standing in the Rainbow, A Red Bird Christmas, and Can't Wait to Get to Heaven. These covers make me really happy when I look at them, and they're also have this buttery feel to them, and I want to collect all of her books in this edition. The Air You Breathe by Frances de Pontes Peebles, The Light Between Oceans with the movie poster cover, The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult, Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, The Book of Speculation by Erica Swyler, This Is Where It Ends by Marika Nijkamp, Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi, Tarantula by Bob Dylan, Vogues by Christina Dolcher, The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I hate that they're different heights, Highly Illogical Behavior by John Corey Whaley, God Help the Child by Toni Morrison, and my mini collection of The Little Prince books. This one is in Korean and I love the illustrations here. This one is in Russian with classical illustrations, Polish version, and the movie version. Shelf number 4, where I mainly have some romance novels. Starting with The Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey, and I really don't like this particular cover. I like the original one, but this one, I don't know, it seems pretty silly. And one of my favorite stories, Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. It's very steamy. This absolutely gorgeous edition of A Castle in the Clouds by Kirsten Gear. 2 of the Jane books, My Lady Jane and My Plain Jane by Cynthia Henn, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. Bunny by Mana Awad. I really didn't understand the hype for this book. A book with a very summery cover, Tremarnock by Emma Burstall. Miss Wrong and Mr. Right by Robert Brinza. The Overdue Life of Amy Byler. The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. And A.V. Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes. The Kiss Thief and The Broken Night by L.J. Shen. When Dimple Met Rishi and From Twinkle with Love by Sandhya Menon. It's a kind of a funny story and Be More Chill by Ned Vizzini. Frankly in Love by David Yoon. A book version of Dear Evan Hansen. I cry so much every time I listen to songs from this musical, and my favorite one is Waving Through the Window. Another book version of a musical, this time it's The Prom. Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. This is a Russian book, 2:36 Alaskan time. I kind of like these books. They're skinny and also they have colorful edges. This one is Memoirs of an Imaginary Friend. Water for Elephants. This one is an Italian book. The name translates to something like The Distance Between Me and the Cherry Tree, about a girl who is going blind, and The Perks of Being a Wallflower. When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman. Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. Ralph's Party by Liza Jewell. From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. 9 Coaches Waiting by Mary Stewart. And the last book here is The Ninth Life of Louis Drax by Liz Jensen, and I think I prefer the movie adaptation, but I'm not sure. I watched it a long time ago. And the last shelf on this bookcase, The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Finnegar, Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver, Still Alice by Liza Genova, a heartbreaking book and also a heartbreaking movie adaptation. The Time of My Life by Cecilia Ahern, books by Jojo Moyes, A Girl You Left Behind, Me Before You, After You, and Me Before You, the movie tie-in edition. Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. The 13th Tale by Diane Satterfield. Eric Emmanuel Schmidt, Oscar et la Dame Rose. I think it's pronounced The Mauritanian by Mohamed Ould Slahi. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Educated by Tara Westover. How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Silk by Alessandro Barrico, and the rest of the books are non-fiction books. Starting with The Mysterious World of Cats by Herbie Brennan. The Mermaid Handbook by Caroline Turgeon, and it is what it says it is. Has very nice illustrations and photos here. 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup. The Silk Rose by Peter Frankopan. A book by a Moldovan psychologist, I think, Julia Lapina. Body, Food, Sex, and Anxiety. Beautiful Boy by David Sheff. Michelle Phan's book. I think she was the very first YouTuber I started watching. One of my most favorite artists, Elton John, and his autobiography. An amazing book and also an audiobook. It is narrated by him. I really recommend it. A False Report. The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. The Secret Life of a Vet by Rory Colum. We Should All Be Feminists and Manifesto by Chimandan Ngozi Adichie. The History of Death. The Loneliest Polar Bear by Cale Williams. Know My Name by Chanel Miller. The Accidental Veterinarian by Philip Schott. Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton Hale. This is a collection of classical pieces for every day of the year. A book about polyamorous relationships. The movie book. It is what it is. It's just the history of cinematography, I guess. And this gigantic book about Black Mirror, the TV show, is the collection of interviews of all the people who were creating this show, and they go episode by episode. Bookshelf number 2. I ran out of space and I decided to keep them on top of the bookcase. These are all of my fantasy books, and also I have graphic novels and comic books. Oh my god, I love standing on the chair. So let's start with the first kind of shelf. First up, there is Metro 2033. Then 2 books by Kai Meyer. I think they're German books. Die Seiten der Welt, trilogy, I think. I might be pronouncing that wrong, sorry. Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw. The Grey Seer by Kim Liggett. The Red Garden by Alice Hoffman. These are Russian books, Mara and Morok. I'm not sure how to translate that into English. Two other Russian books, Sholokh and Coven of the Champlain Lake. Озеро Champlain. We Rule the Night by Claire Eliza Bartlett. Girl, Serpent and Thor by Melissa Basher-Doust. The House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin Craig. We Are Blood and Thunder by Cassia Lupo. Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise. The Kiss of Deception and the Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. Year One by Nora Roberts. Sabriel by Garth Nix. I remember once I tweeted something about this book and Garth Nix himself liked it and I was like, A Dirty Job and Secondhand Souls by Christopher Moore. I read the first one. It's very funny but very dirty. Another book by a Russian-speaking author, An Autumn Fox. I heard it's something similar to The Witcher. The Darkest Bloom by P.M. Freestone. A very beautiful cover. And another gorgeous cover is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. On this shelf I have books in English. As for decorations, I have this postcard over here, very cozy. Then I have this edition of The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. Paperback of A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. I love the blue and copper combination here. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Pax by Sarah Pennypacker, a heartbreaking book. Winter Song by S.J. Jones. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This Arc of Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. I'll Create editions of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Collector's edition of Divergent by Veronica Roth. The Kingdom of Bog by Mary Lou. I think it was in one of the subscription boxes, either I'll Create or Illumicrate, I don't remember. Anne of Green Gables, one of my favorite books, but I want a different edition. Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. It was in one of the Owl Crate boxes. This edition of The City of Brass. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I adore this cover. I think it's an arc of The Waking Land by Callie Bates. Artemis by Andy Weir. One of my favorite YA sci-fi trilogies by Emmy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Illuminae, Gemina, and I'm Missing Obsidio. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. The Guinevere? Deception by Kirsten White. It's, I think, Illumicrate Special Edition. Ooh, a thick boy here. Dark Age by Pierce Brown. A Chord of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. And Together We Burn by Isabel Ibanez. This is an Owl Crate edition. Alright, shelf number 3, and we're starting off with these gorgeous 25th anniversary illustrated editions of Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice and The Royal Assassin. Then I have the series by Sebastian de Castell, starting with Way of the Argosy, Spellslinger, Shadow Black, Charmcaster, Soulbinder, Queenslayer, and Crownbreaker. I'm still in the process of collecting Robin Hobb's books, and so far I have The Golden Fool, Dragonhaven, Blood of Dragons, and Shaman's Crossing. Next up, the author whose third book we have been waiting for so long. This edition of The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and also these, The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear in 2 volumes. The Rage of Dragons by Ewan Winter, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I have these souvenirs from Egypt because the next trilogy takes place there. Dave Abad trilogy by Shannon Chakraborty with The City of Brass, The Kingdom of Copper, and The Empire of Gold. On shelf number 4, I mostly keep Asian fantasy and African fantasy, starting with this gorgeous edition of The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, my newest favorite books, The Empress of Salt and Fortune, and When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Ni Vo, A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin, The Poppy War, The Dragon Republic, and The Burning God by Rebecca Kwong, Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee, Jade Fire Gold by June CL10, Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, Talon, Legion, and Inferno by Julie Kagawa, The Wicked Fox by Ket Chok, Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, The Star-Touched Queen, The Gilded Wolves, and The Silvered Serpents, all by Rashni Chokshi, We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal, Five Dark Fates by Kendar Blake, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne Brown, The Fifth Season, The Obelisk Gate, and The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, and the last book on the shelf is Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. On the next shelf, I have these Funko Pops of my 2 favorite characters from Game of Thrones, Daenerys, and all the titles after that, and also Ramsay Bolton. Controversial, I know. And also, another controversial thing, I didn't hate the last season. Then I have this candle from Meraki Candles, and it was in Illumicrate box some years ago. Then I have the Song of Ice and Fire books, starting with A Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings, A Storm of Swords, A Feast for Crows with Jon Snow on the cover, and the 2 parts of A Dance with Dragons. Then I have this Russian book called The House That, or The House in Which, the first book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. Oof, my favorite book, The Binding by Bridget Collins, Ink and Bone by Rachel Kane, Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat, this beautiful edition of A Night in the Lonesome October. It has illustrations. Kings of the Wild and Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It's the bind up of all 7 stories. Robert Asprin and the collection of his myth stories. The Hobbit. The Hobbits were taken to Isengard. And the Lord of the Rings books. Alright, I hope my phone is not going to fall. It's a very precarious position here. So this is shelf number 6. And we're starting off with Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And these 3 books by Lauren Oliver, Delirium, Pandemonium, Annabelle Hannah, Raven Alex, and I don't know where the 3rd book is. This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. Vicious by Victoria Schwab. This edition of A Darker Shade of Magic. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This stunning edition of A Gathering of Shadows and The Conjuring of Light. Bittersweet Magic by Adrienne Tooley. A Dishonored novel by Adam Christopher. Stardust and the Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. Sorcery of Thorns and Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. Women in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. Gods of Jade and Shadow and Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Midnight's Twins by Holly Race. And The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Also, I have this candle from Flick the Wick, and I got it from one of the Alcray boxes. And I have Funko Pops of Corvo and The Outsider from Dishonored Games. Oh my gosh, I think it's going to take forever to show all of these comic books and graphic novels, but I guess let's start with something. So up top here, I have the Wendy Project by Melissa Jane Osborne and the illustrations by Veronica Fish. Hello, Sansa? Excuse me? This is The Golden Warrior, a comic book based on Kazakh mythology. Blue is the Warmest Color by Julie Marot. The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. And is it me or she looks like Khaleesi? Sorceline, about a girl who wanted to treat fantastic beasts. There's Doctor Strange Encyclopedia. A book about Game of Thrones, the TV show. The Ice Dragon by George Martin. The Anthology of Simpsons comics, and this is the 2nd volume. 6 volumes of Lock and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Vox Machina graphic novel. The Steel Prince by V.E. Schwab. 7 volumes of The Boys. The Umbrella Academy and Hazel and Cha-Cha Save Christmas. Edward Scissorhands. The Island of Dr. Moreau. The 1st volume of Lumberjanes. Volumes 2 and 3 of Jughead comic books. Mouse by Art Spiegelman. These comic books are based on Kazakh fairy tales. I think this one is called Apocalyptic Girl. Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Aaron Hicks. How to Tell If Your Cat is Plotting to Kill You. Fangs by Sarah Anderson. 5 volumes of Orange manga. Very, very heartbreaking. Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. Embroideries by Marjan Satrapi. Volumes 1, 7, and 8 of Cheese Sweet Home. And all of these are the Goosebumps books. Wow, it took me much less than I expected. Here's the overview of my 3rd bookcase. Here I keep my favorite books and book series. On the first 2 shelves, I decided to keep most of my queer books and also some books on mythology. So the first 2 books here are by a Chinese author, and it's called The Heaven Official's Blessing. I love these editions because they're very beautiful, you know, under the dust jacket. Oh my gosh. It's very hard to do with one hand. And yeah, they have very cool end papers, and the paper is good inside, and also there's a bookmark here. Chem by Elsie Rosen. The Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. My favorite book of all time is The House in the Cerulean Sea. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Ziggy Stardust and Me by James Brandon. My new favorite book, Date Me Bryson Keller by Kevin Van Wy. Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and also Her Royal Highness, I guess, by Rachel Hawkins. Let me check the name. Yes, I was right, it's Her Royal Highness. This edition of The the House in the Cerulean Sea. And over here I have my mythology books and like retellings and stuff. The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, A Song of Achilles and Circe by Madeline Miller, and these gorgeous editions of Stephen Fry's books. We have Mythos, Heroes, and Troy. They also have illustrations in them. And the first volume of Lore Olympus. This bookshelf is dedicated to my favorite publisher, Popcorn Books, because they publish mainly queer books and also books by people of color. Starting off with my most favorite graphic novel of all time, Heartstopper. This is the first volume. Simon and the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Call Me By Your Name and Find Me by Andre Esseman. Les by Andrew Sean Greer. The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. Boy Erased by Garrett Conley. Princess Diaries by Matt Cabot. Again, one of my favorite books. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I Was Born for This and Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat. The Astonishing Color of After by Emily Exarpan. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Naleria Sands. Лето в пионерском галстуке, or The Summer in Pioneer's Tie. The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. The Prize Guide to the Occult by Leslie Walton. Adib Haram and his Darius the Great is Not Okay and Darius the Great Deserves Better. Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu. Heartstopper Volume 2. And 4 volumes of Fence. This is my Harry Potter appreciation shelf. This is a sticker book. There are spaces to put stickers in. Also, I have this illustrated edition in Polish, The Philosopher's Stone in Polish, and also in Kazakh, my mother tongue. These ones are the first editions in Russian, the Bloomsbury ones in English, my prized possession, the Mina Lima editions. Also, I have this random white owl, a Funko of Newt, and Hot Daddy Dumbledore. This is a music box. Yay. This Newt Scamander related book, The Fantastic Beasts screenplay in Russian and in English, The Time Turner, and The Elder Wand. This is my Lee Bardugo shrine. Starting off with the collector's edition of Shadow and Bone. Then I have The Language of Thorns, Six of Crows in Polish. It has black sprayed edges and a bookmark. A Polish edition of Shadow and Bone. It also has a bookmark. Crooked Kingdom, King of Scars. It's shiny. This movie poster edition of Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. The Shadow and Bone trilogy, Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. And also, these books are well loved. Then there is the Six of Crows duology with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and they're also annotated. And lastly, here's the Nikolai duology with King of Scars and The Rule of Wolves. Ta-da! There's also this candle from Novelly Yours Candles. It was in one of the Alcrate boxes. Here's the first cover of Sabbath Here's An Ember in the Ashes. And these are my favorite covers with An Ember in the Ashes, A Torch Against the Night, A Reaper at the Gates, and A Sky Beyond the Storm. This is a shelf dedicated to Sarah J. Maas books and also Jay Kristoff's books. First up, I have this Farah mug and the Throne of Glass series, The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and The Kingdom of Ash. Next, I have Farah and Her Horny Adventures series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. And the next book in the series about Nesta, A Court of Silver Flames. The first book in the Crescent City series, The House of Earth and Blood, I think. This little fan service threesome scene from Nevernight. Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. The Nevernight Chronicles by Jay Kristoff. Nevernight, God's Grave, and Dark Dawn. I also have this edition of Dark Dawn in English, and it has like sprayed edges. And I have a medallion with Corvair crest on it. Also, I have this mug with Mr. Kindly, Mia and Ash, and the Mia Corvair Funko Pop. And the last bookshelf houses all of my Cassandra Clare books and also Suzanne Collins books. Firstly, I have here an illustrated history of notable shadow hunters and denizens of Downworld, a movie poster edition of City of Bones. Hello, Vecna. City of Bones, City of Ashes, this edition of City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and City of Heavenly Fire. The Tales of the Shadowhunters Academy, The Bane Chronicles, he's my favorite character, the Infernal Devices trilogy, Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. Oh my gosh, it's a tongue twister. The Dark Artifices trilogy, Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness. I only care about Kid and Tai here. The Last Hours trilogy, Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron, and I'm waiting for Chain of Thorns. All 3 Hunger Games books in one. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay, all by Suzanne Collins. And the last bookcase, here I have thrillers, detectives, historical fiction, sci-fi, Marissa Mayer's shelf, children's and middle grade books. Of course, we're starting off on the first shelf. Here I have this lantern. Hello. I'll remove it for now, but it works like this. Then I have this mug from Egypt as well, and it houses all of my bookmarks. In this little corner here, I have my very few numbered historical fiction novels, I think. I have The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne, Gauging Skies by Christine Lunens. The main character here is disgusting, absolutely disgusting, and I love the movie that was inspired by this book more. It's called Jojo Rabbit. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, a book by a French author, Pierre Lemaitre. I'll try to pronounce the French name for it, Couleur de l'incendie. Tell me how I did. One of my all-time favorites, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. Look at the notes. And The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. I usually take off this half jacket, but I wanted to keep it for this guy. Then over here I have thrillers, detectives, maybe some horror stories, starting with Lee Leslie Money, Chanson Douce, Defending Jacob by William Landay, The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, My Sister Rosa by Justine L'Arbolistier, The One by John Mars, The Green Mile and It by Stephen King, a collection of ghost stories, I guess, by a lot of authors. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the Spanish name, but if you want to know, this is It. Killing November by Adriana Mather. I'm really excited about this book. It's Grady Hendrix's My Best Friend's Exorcism, Dan Brown and his Digital Fortress, and The Deception Point. Again, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Joe Nesbo, Zonen. I will show you the name here. Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. On the second shelf, I again have a tea light over here, and also Little Grogu. As for the books, I have here Pierce Brown's first trilogy, Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I love the color of the end papers. Then I also have Machineries of Empire series by Yoon Ha Lee with Nine Fox Gambit, Raven Stratagem, and Revenant Gun. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, Fleet of Knives by Gareth Powell, Skyward and Starside by Brandon Sanderson, and I really don't like these covers. The Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao, Dune Chronicles by Frank Herbert, two collections of Martha Wells' Killerbots Diaries, Tell the Machine Good Night by Katie Williams, The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joanne He, The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, and the last three books on the shelf are Neil Shusterman's Scythe, Thunderhead, and The Toll. Next up is my Marissa Mayer shelf. I have all of her books here. Firstly, it's the very first edition of Cinder, the second edition of Scarlet, Cress, and Winter, and also Stars Above. And this is the newest edition, and all of her other books are also published in the same style. So here we have Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, Winter, and also Stars Above and Fairest. There's also Heartless, Renegades. I don't really like this cover. Instant Karma, also not the biggest fan of the cover. And her latest book, Gilded. This is my middle grade shelf, starting with Rick Riordan's books, the Percy Jackson series with The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian, and Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I'm still collecting the Heroes of Olympus series. I have book 3, The Mark of Athena, and book 5, The Blood of Olympus. The 3 books of the Kane Chronicles. I have The Red Pyramid, The Throne of Fire, and The Shadow of the Serpent, or The Serpent's Shadow or something. Here I have these little Magnus Chase books, 9 of the 9 Worlds, and Hotel Valhalla. The Trials of Apollo series. I have The Hidden Oracle and The Tyrant's Tomb. I'm also collecting Shannon Messenger's books. This is The Keeper of the Lost Cities, the first book. Book number 2, Exile. Book number 3, Everblaze. Flashback, I'm not sure which number it is. And Legacy. Then I have A Wrinkle in Time series and the incomplete Lockwood & Co. series by Jonathan Stroud. The Hollow Boy, book 3. The Creeping Shadow, book 4. And The Empty Grave, book 5. And the very last bookshelf in this tour houses all of my children's and middle grade books, starting with The Royal Rabbits of London, Knitbone Pepper Ghost Dog books by Claire Barker, Eco by Pam Munoz Ryan, Kiki's Delivery Service books. This is a book by Korean author Lee Mi-ye, or the English name Delargood's Dream Department Store, Pickle Witch and Jack and the Cuckoo Cousin by Claire Barker, Serafina and the Twisted Staff by Robert Bitty, 12 Nights by Andrew Zurcher, Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones, Furthermore by Tahera Mafi, 4 books in the Wings of Fire series by Tui Sutherland, Treasure Island by Robert Stevenson. I'm not sure what the English name for this is, probably Tree of Lies by Frances Harding, Arusha and the End of Time by Roshni Chokshi, the first book in the Endling series by Catherine Applegate, Coraline by Neil Gaiman, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, Curse of the Night Wolf by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddell, The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, Wormwood Mire by Judith Russell, A Collection of Fairy Tales and Legends by Grimm Brothers, Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, these 2 Encanto books by T.S. Tilton, and the very last book is Crenshaw by Catherine Applegate. And that's it! Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, in the description box there are links to some organizations that help people and animals in Ukraine. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!